Welcome back to the channel, guys. Today we're going to be tearing down this 5.3 that I had running on that engine stand in a previous video. I don't know if it was the last one, but a previous video. Currently sitting right there on the engine stand still. We're going to strip that wiring harness off and I'm going to tear it down no farther than the heads and whatnot. I'm just resealing it, and I'll throw a new water pump on while I'm at it, new thermostat. I have another set of exhaust manifolds that are off of my Silverado that I want to try and use, but they may not fit. So in this video, we're going to tear it down, clean everything, and throw it back together, get it ready to go in a vehicle. So without further ado, let's get started. Alright, it's tore down about as far as I'm going to take it tonight. It's time for me to go get my shower in and get to bed. I put the alternator, the power steering pump, and the bracket that holds the two over there. I'm going to use the bracket, at least part of it, to hold the alternator. I don't know about the power steering pump yet. And then over here is a pile of everything that is just going junk, not using any of that. And then over there on the table is where I'm putting everything that I'm going to clean. I might have mentioned earlier that intake manifold is going in the trash. I may pull the fuel rails and injectors off of that before I throw it in the trash, but the intake is broke, so it's trash. I have a new one, not new, but new to me, sitting back here with rails and injectors. the same injectors actually, so I don't have to change anything there. That should be it. Got a second flex plate, not that I need it, but like I said, I'm going to put a new water pump on, so that'll go in the trash. I'll have to reuse this, obviously. The motor mounts will go in the trash. I'll have to keep the bolts, keeping the starter. It's a brand new starter. But that's as far as it's going to get tonight. So I'm going to call it a night, and we'll pick back up with this tomorrow. What's up, guys? It's the next day. We're going to get back to tearing this apart. And I'm probably going to put you on a time lapse again. Oh, free tool. Somebody's probably looking for that. I'm just going to, like I said before, I'm not taking the heads off. There's a bolt. I'm just going to take the valley cover off. I'm taking these vent ports off. I'm going to take valve covers off, the water pump, timing cover, and the rear cover. I'm going to have to pick this up with the cherry picker to get the flex plate off. I'm just going to thrash away at it, so I'll probably put you on a time lapse through all of it again. But first, before I do any of that, removing anything else, I'm going to vacuum this out because this is pretty bad. So let's get to it. Alright, so I got the valve covers off now, and it's pretty black in there, but there's no really sludge. Maybe a little bit around some of these bolts, but otherwise it looks fairly decent. This side has some sludge buildup, and I'll try and wipe as much of this out as I can. It's really not too bad. I expected worse, considering before I pulled the valve covers, which I think I did it off camera, I pulled the PCV valve out of the valve cover on this side, and it appeared it was just going to be full of sludge. Let's see if I can get this out one-handed. just because of this, I figured it was going to be full of sludge. But it really doesn't look that bad. So I'm just going to clean all this up. I'm going to replace this PCB valve, but I'm just going to clean what little bit of sludge is in here out the best I can and reseal it. And that's all I'm doing with any of this. I'm not rebuilding this by any means. I don't really see a reason to be honest. It ran fine. I'm just taking care of this massive oil leak that I'm not sure is where it's coming from. So just doing all the gaskets minus the head gaskets. So I need to go get, I forgot I don't have the correct balancer puller for this anymore. So I'm gonna have to go get one, and then we'll pull the harmonic balancer off and the timing cover after I drain the oil, because I haven't done that yet either. So we'll be back. What's up guys, it's the next day again. I had to go order that harmonic balancer puller. Finally got that. So I got nothing done last night other than what I do. I pulled the intake, or did I do that the day before? I don't remember. I remember pulling the valve covers. This is what we're left with, I guess. Pull the motor mounts off, get the starter out of the way, get the harmonic balancer off. I still got to drain the oil. I haven't done that yet. And it is black. Get the oil drained, get the timing cover off, we'll roll her over, get that oil pan off, and I will probably go ahead and put the new oil pan on while it is upside down, and then come back and pull this off after that. Seems like that's probably the best option, rather than making a mess more than I already have. So I'm probably just going to put you on a time lapse again. camera died, and I'm not sure when it died. I did catch it and charge it, but I'm not sure where it left off. I took the oil pan off. It's down there, and the pickup tube. I put the new front sump tube on it, and this one has 2 bolts. It actually has a spot on this bracket here for 2 bolts, not like this one. It only takes 1 bolt. So I like that. Maybe that O-ring will never fail. Doubtful. Period. So we got the new oil pan over here. I've been messing with this. Sorry, I'm waiting for 3,000 on, so it's a little bit louder. I've been messing with this new front sump oil pan. I customized the dipstick that is going to be way too short that I can never get to. This came with the oil pan, along with windage tray. I don't even know what that piece is called. And a new gasket, and a ton of new bolts. Sure. Oh, and this here crossover, because the filter location moves from the back to the front. Trust. Doubtful. Very. But I used this on the frame of this Mustang before I did it in the trunk, where I cut out all the trunk floor and whatnot. I covered the frame in this, and then put those panels down below the top. Apparently it's good for that. But this is what I got from Grammar, so that's what the oil pan got. I didn't like the shininess. Too shiny. So I guess I'll paint this oil pan tomorrow. Or again, before I put it in the vehicle to yeah. Quick call it tonight. Maybe we'll get something done with this tomorrow. What's up, guys? It's the following day once again. It's actually kind of late in the day. I've had an eventful morning. As you know, I primered that last night. I have not got paint for it yet. I should probably go do that. Anyways, I acquired some stuff today. Very cheap. I got an intercooler, some piping, some headers, and a turbo Y pipe. and a fuel pump, fuel rails, injectors, blow-off valve, some random bolts, and then I got me a transmission mount and the rear cover that I was talking about, and the same guy that I got that other stuff from on the floor gave me a brand new AC compressor. I don't know what I'm doing with this, but it's here. I didn't pay any extra for it. There's also a bunch of other random stuff. Oh, I got this intake. So I bought that intake that's over here. Jesus. I bought that intake from a junkyard. That is your drive-by cable, standard truck intake. Has the EGR valve and everything. That's what that is too. The one that's broken. This is your drive-by wire intake. I grabbed a drive-by cable just because that's what I could find that day. So this is your drive-by wire intake. Over here, let me just turn this around, make it easier. So right there is where your EGR goes into the manifold on your drive-by cable, right here. The drive-by wire doesn't have that. There's no hole there. There's a bolt provision, that's it. So now the only thing I gotta do, I'll leave this here for now and just plug this. But I just have to get the block off for that. Change this broken map sensor. Otherwise, it's pretty much the same intake. Difference may be the injectors. I think those are different injectors. Nope, they're the same actually. Okay, that'll be. I'm gonna go get some paint quick while I can and paint that oil pan. And I got another timing cover too. I don't know if I even showed what that other one looked like, but this is one that I acquired this morning with that other stuff that I got. This one's a lot cleaner already. So all I'm gonna do is clean the gasket surface. I may paint that the same color as the oil pan. I don't know yet. Am I gonna do any prep work? Absolutely not. Do I care? Absolutely not. All right, so I'm back from attempting to get paint. I can't have any paint mixed until Monday, and it's Saturday. So I went ahead and primered that and knocked the front seal out of it. So I'm gonna let that dry for a couple seconds, and then I'm gonna put that seal back in, and I'm gonna throw it on. Alright, so here's what we got here. I got 2 broken bolts for the exhaust manifold. I'm going to do the weld a washer and a nut to it trick and probably fail 13 times before I get one of them out. And then we'll move to the other one and fail another 47 times before we get that one out. My camera died, but I did change the rear cover, torque that down, put the flex plate back on, torque that down, put it back on the stand. I'm not even sure where the camera died, so I did that. I put the harmonic balancer on. I think I got the timing cover going on and being torqued. And then I put the lift plate on it. Not sure if that's in there. Otherwise, I primered the whole thing for some reason, so I can clean all that off. Went right over every surface, inside the chambers, everything. Oh well. I didn't clean the block at all, but it's primered. Paint, I'll have paint tomorrow afternoon sometime, and I'll paint over everything, and then I'll wipe off all of this gasket surface areas with some brake clean. So there's that. Now I'm gonna weld this, burn myself, and fail 47 times on all of it. I'm using the cheapest welder I could find. That one actually worked on the first try. I don't think I've ever had that happen. Try this other one now. Alright, I gotta do some modifications to the motor mounts. They stick out way too far. And then those ones, they're not actually motor mounts. It's another one of those, but it's shorter. I'm gonna have to modify one of those. Or, well, I'm gonna have to modify both of those, one for each side, to sit on top of that part of the mount off the car to sit, you know, up higher, because I can't go down any lower, and I've got probably, I don't know, 4 inches or so between that one and that one, and I can only go down probably a ½ inch before I start hitting that. Well, really don't even want to go down that far. I want to stay up off of that as far as I can. So, motor mount modification. I also need to take into consideration of the bell housing, and you know, this is going to tilt back a little bit. So I'm going to modify those, and I'm going to wait on the other pieces, and I'm going to get the transmission bolted up and drop both in at the same time, get my motor mounts and my transmission mount figured out at the same time. Alright, so I was going to end the video. I decided I'm going to go ahead and get this all put in. So I modified the motor mounts. I'll show you in a second. I kind of sort of modified the ones in the car. Modified the ones that the aftermarket universal ones I bought for the block. And got that where I like it for the most part. Might see if I can get the engine to slide back a little more. It's a little too far forward for my liking and for the radiator and electric fan. But now it's painted black. I decided I didn't want to wait for paint, so I just bought black, bolted the transmission up, and put the torque converter bolts in. And now I guess I'm ready to stab this in. The motor mounts on the car, I didn't really modify them. So this one was flipped the other way and over here. Same thing with that one, it was flipped the other way and over here, so it sat down lower. I just flipped sides. There was 3 bolts holding it in. Now there's this hole and this hole that don't line up. Now there's 2 bolts to hold each one in, and that should be fine. If 2 don't hold it, 3 never would have. So that's what we got going on here. I'm gonna stab this in, and you guys can watch me struggle. Transmission was in, and I currently have the transmission up against the tunnel, and as you can see, put this on here, we're at 7 degrees. I don't like it, so I don't know if I need to just make some new mounts off the car so it can sit a little bit lower and I can get my angle more, or get less angle, I should say. Or what I'm gonna do here exactly. I don't really want to flip them back over. I mean, I could do that, I can go down probably 2 inches before the oil pan hits the cross member. Well, I can go down 2 inches and still have space, is what I mean to say. But I can try flipping those mounts back to the correct side and maybe put a spacer in between. I might try that first before I make some mounts, just because that's easier. But I'm going to fiddle with this off camera and see what I can come up with, and I'll show you guys. My camera's about to die anyways, so I'll get back with you. Alright guys, so here's what we got here. I was going to do 2 separate videos of resealing this 5.3, and then I was going to do the wiring and stuff on my Mustang, and then I was going to do a reveal. Things changed. The 5.3 is currently in my Mustang, and the reason why I'm going through this is because I was editing video and I was trying to figure out how to break it up, and then I decided to just put it all together, make that the reveal, and I never filmed an outro. So here's my outro. But before, the motor's in the car, the transmission's with it, 4L60. Don't know if that's any good. I got my motor mounts. I don't know if I'm going to leave them like this just yet, but I do have a temporary cross member for the transmission made, and I'm going to redo it. I just threw something together real quick to get my angle set to measure for a drive shaft. But I cut down the motor mounts. You probably can't really see it. And I flipped the factory car mount upside down and swapped sides. So this one actually goes on the other side. And I did that so it would sit higher. And these bushings actually go in between, but when I put these in between, then the motor sits too high and I have way too much angle on the tail shaft of the transmission. So without those bushings, then I get it where I need to, but at least now I can measure for a drive shaft. Doing so without a slip yoke, because I don't have a 27 spline slip yoke. I only have 31s laying around. So this is pretty much going to be an outro. I've went as far as I can for the moment. I'm waiting on parts. I haven't had time to go pull the wiring harness off of my trail rig and the PCM out of that, so I ordered a new harness, and I ordered the cheapest one I could find. It was $110. We're going to see how well that works. It looks just like the one that I bought from Carl Customs, but we'll see how that works. And I have a few PCMs laying around that are already tuned. They're all the exact same. So whenever that harness shows up, I think Monday, I'll put that in. And then all I gotta do is put water pump on, and I gotta do a little more modification here. Just cut a little more to let the radiator sit down farther. And I don't know if I showed this before, but this is my new radiator and fan setup. I have just enough space there. Hopefully the water pump clears. It should, but hopefully it does. And then I'm not going to put the intake on yet because I think I'm pulling this all back out. But there you have it. This is what it's going to be. Like I said, I'm going to do a whole another video on doing the wiring, and I still need to do the brake booster master cylinder. I'll do that in another video. So that's what it is. Catch you later.